Monday back earlier than I expected, but turns out I have some stuff going on later tonight, so it was not this out earlier or not at all. So, and I wanted to come in here and paint and relax. And while I'm painting and relaxing, that's when I live stream. I still, at some point, need to do my Wandering Monster list. And I'm going to be more specific with mine. I'm going to, Mac, I'm going to be like, the Wandering Monsters are going to be outdoor Wandering Monsters is the first thing I do. It's going to be outdoors. And the first thought I have in my head when it comes to, outdoor Wandering Monsters is it has to be a monster that moves around. You know what I mean? So unless the players are just exploring entirely new areas, I don't know that they're going to wander into a trapdoor spider if they're traveling, through well traveled terrain, like on a road or something. But by that same thing, if they are traveling on a road or something, then the chances of encountering a group of bandits, a flight of harpies, stuff like that, sturges, paratons, pretty much things that actually get around. That's uh that's how I would think about it. Watched the panel the other day on the Legion of Myths show. It's a good show. I watched it. I had to post some smart assery because, it's what I do. And just, point out that I liked their new intro. It's really cool. Legion Myth's new intro, I think, is really well done. I don't know who did it. Maybe Max. He's really smart. He could probably, you know, easily pull something like that out. But yeah, it's really good. I was like really impressed by it. So if you're wondering what I'm doing here, I am putting some Lamenter yellow glaze on top of these yellow robots. Well, mechs, obviously, that I've already done. Because when you do yellow, and this is something I learned when I painted a Lamenter army. If you do yellow and then you go back and you give it a highlight, a really, really fine highlight, and then you go back after the highlights dry and you hit it with a little Lamenter yellow glaze, it makes the yellow look a lot more, well, in my opinion, just better. See what we got here. Janet, what is up, Janet? You looked really nice dressed up as a nun the other day. Unfortunately, in my opinion, Two Mules for Sister Sarah is like one of the weakest of all of that genre with Clint Eastwood in it. Yeah, it's a pretty weak one. I mean, not horrible, but pretty weak. You know. I also watched your Friday night shit show for a while too. Uh, yeah. So you have been just active and running about doing things, which is cool. Cool, 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 cool. I have been trying to straighten up my desk because I don't even want to show it off. It's just a pile of freaking minis everywhere at this point. So Yeah, I was just fixing a couple things as I can. But yeah, yeah, really good stuff you guys been doing. I like it a lot. Like it a lot. I need more of this Lamenter's glaze. I've had it for, yeah, that's what you do now, right? I get it. This is kind of mine. I play board games with the wife, and I paint, and then uh, Saturday night I run Hyperborea. That's pretty much it for me. Just putting some extra yellowy yellow on these guys. When I painted them originally, I think I used there's a wash for yellow that you can use, and like most game yellows, it just makes the miniature look orange. Mobius, good day to you, sir. Um, Mobius, not to be really personal with you, but then again, never mind. I'm always kind of personal with you. What are you and Dark Knight beefing about? Because that was a little bit surprising the other day. Is it connected to the other stuff you're beefing about, or just a different thing? I mean, I don't know. I mean, Dark Knight's a pretty cool kid, I think. He's young, but I like him all right. But yeah, I kind of saw you two go out a little bit, and I was just like, okay, now what? See, here I got my Battle Master, and oh, I can't hold it there. But I went with basically a black and yellow because I do that quite often. Oh, he's just annoying. Uh, well, I am sorry you feel that way. I never noticed, but you know, whatever, whatever. This is my United States of whatever. Anyway, oh, I got some cool figures in the other day because Reaper finally decided to stop being jackasses. Steven, oi, oi, oi. Might have to straighten these guys out, I think, because got some wings that look a little bent, but that's okay. But these are, I forget what Reaver calls them, but they will make very, very decent. Yeah, these are soft plastic. They're like that vinyl. I can be annoying. You're never annoying, Janet. You're always a pleasure to be around. Come on. You and Bruce, good guys. But yeah, it's basically a aerospace fighter. And right now, I've only got a couple. I've got like four Shilones, a Lucifer, like a Chippewa, a couple the really old medals, and they're not for some reason other than the Shilones. Uh, Catalyst really hasn't released any new aerospace fighters. And so the good news is you can go online and download the, if you want to use them in Alpha Strike, you can go online and download them for Alpha Strike. And if you want to use them in Baltech, you can just, find the closest thing to it. There it is with its, its A10 looking. This compared to a mech would probably be about maybe a 45-ton strike fighter. So, except because it looks kind of like an A10, I would have to make it like super, tough. Like max out the armor on it, and then I don't know what kind of gun I'd put on it. But I saw your opening, your Reapers. Very cool. Very cool indeed, sir. Reaper is still aggravating me with their seemingly inability to have half the shit I want in stock. Red heart shape. Oh, Janet. Yeah, I tell you, old Janet dressed up like a nun. That is something. That is something. But if you haven't had Bruce show you like Outlaw Josie Wells, Unforgiven, uh, Mech Warrior Compendium, fastest 1761. Let me see. See, I would be a lot more knowledgeable if you told me what the like what era is it? Because I don't think of like the code number like you just said. I think of like the see this one I've got a couple of. I got a long time ago, the Lucifers. But a big problem is right now the only aerospace fighters you can really get, you have to get from Iron Wind Enterprises, and they charge $20 a piece. Still waiting. Yes, sometimes it takes you a little while, doesn't it? And it sucks. Yeah, this is the other one I have right here, the Corsair. And when I bought it, it was literally like $5 and change, and now they want like $20. And it's like, look, I would support the hell out of Ironwood Enterprise or Iron Wind Enterprises, but not if they're going to try to charge me. Uh, Second edition MechWarrior, yeah, I've got that. I love that. That's my favorite. Actually, I should have done a video, like a short video where people could watch, but I did mention this on a live show. I don't know if you were even there. Uh, I battled in my head for a very long time whether um, if I were going to run MechWarrior, whether it would be Destiny or whatever. And at the very end of all of my thoughts on it, I settled on MechWarrior Second Edition. That's what I would actually run. Uh, I've ordered from Iron Wind, and I haven't had much of a problem. But to be fair, that was a long time ago. And the stuff I ordered from them, like I'm working on one right now. It's this. I don't remember what model of Marauder this is supposed to be, but apparently it gets rid of the AC for two pairs of LRM-10s, and it's all really blocky because this guy was made 3D. Yeah, get one of your yeah, right. This one was pretty much, it was when they were still fighting over the unseen. So they were making all of these mechs. Like I've got the Griffin too. I've got a Warhammer that was made during that period. And they're all like just really blocky and strange looking. I mean, they work. They're cool. And the models match, existing models. So if you want to say this is a Marauder 3S or whatever, I mean, that's what it is. But, you know, so what I'm doing right now is I've drilled holes in it and I'm pinning this arm because I'm sick and tired. This arm just, for some reason, the other arm has stayed on the whole time I've ever owned this thing. This arm keeps coming off. And obviously, I've stripped this and reprimed it. I don't know how. Yes, I own more miniatures from Frostgrave than any human being actually should. And what I mean by that is the box over there, that the blue thing, you can barely make out what it is setting on by the wall. That entire triple whatever plastics is nothing but Frostgrave barbarians that I have equipped and made an army out of for Oathmark. So I've got a bunch of barbarians with spears and a bunch with, bows and some with like great axes, that would be line breakers. It is starting to get hot. And the only reason I haven't shaved all this hair is my wife called her stylist and set me up with an appointment because my wife does not want me to walk around with looking, as she says, looking like a Q-tip. So yes, Paul, you're 100% right. And I shaved my beard about every 6 months or so, and so it's just about that time. But I've actually got Frostgrave miniatures on the table in front of me now that you mention it. Like this young lady right here that I just dropped, but it's plastic, so it didn't break. Yeah. This young lady right here, I'll hold up. This is my apprentice for my thaumaturge warband, and it's 100% Frostgrave. So she's got like the one hand up, like she's casting, and she's got her book, and and she's wearing the white and red that was, I went with white and red because I thought, well, thaumaturgists, they do a lot of healing and buffing. So that kind of seems like the right way to go. So, yeah. Um, Over the years, I've probably got 2 boxes of everything that they ever released for Frostgrave. Not the metals, but the plastic. So I've got like Knights 1, Knights 2, Mage 1, Mage 2, and then all the like the Henchman box sets and all that. Um, and I like them a lot. And another thing I love about them is the compatibility between the different things. How you can use like the arms from the knights on the henchmen, and some of the wizard stuff will fit on all kinds of things. I've even got miniatures that I 3D printed and then cut the arms off the 3D print and put Frostgrave arms on that 3D print because I wanted the body, but at the same time, I wanted, maybe the big sword, or whatever. Yeah, Sacha's been around for quite a while, actually. I mean, he don't talk much, and he's only ever joined chat maybe once or twice. But yeah, he's definitely Definitely not a new guy. He has been around for a very long time. A very nice guy. I remember, I think Bear was confused at whether or not Satya was a man or a woman. And so we got that cleared up. I assumed Mel just because even though I'm not familiar at all with Finnish, I am familiar with a lot of the Eastern European dialects. So, I mean, Sasha, Misha, Satya, those are typically male names. And like Misha is typically a name you would call somebody that's close friend. That wouldn't be like, you wouldn't just walk up and say, "Oh, hey, Misha," to someone you just met. I mean, it's like their name is Mark, but it's kind of like a pet name, Misha. That means that's a very informal. That's not wrong, my bro from Illinois, Paul. Um, Now, if you want to spend the money and do the extra work, you can buy resin, like the extra tough resin, they call it. And that stuff does not break, it will bend. But the problem is a liter of it is typically about $50, right? And that's what I was using a lot towards the end of my 3D printing experiment. Um, and I have to say that basically, when I started doing the math as far as how much it costs to buy the resin and print the stuff, blah, 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 versus the cost to just buy some stuff off of Reaper, um, Reaper ended up winning that cost analysis, let's say. And so I gave my Saturn, I've got a Saturn 4, um, and I gave it to my nephew. I still have the next one up from the Mars. What was that? The Jupiter? Or maybe it's the Saturn 1. Because Saturn 4 was the high tech one when I got it. But regardless, I still have one out there. So if I ever got super desperate and was like, oh, I must print this thing, I could do that, but I don't think that's ever going to happen, you know? Um, but during the very early days of printing, Paul is 100% correct, man. You could print something, and if you dropped it on a floor, even a rug, if it hit right, that shit would snap. I mean, the good news is, I guess, you could always super glue it back together, but the last thing you want is to be printing out a bunch of medieval soldiers, let's say, and like every time you even look at them cross-eyed, you got axes and arms and pretty much anything breaking. And that just kind of sucks, is what that does. That just kind of sucks really bad. So, you know, like I said, you can pay all the extra money for the really high end. Yeah, and the new thing they're doing now, Paul, I'm sure you've seen it, so I'm not telling you anything new. But Reaper's doing this thing where they're like remaking old figures, but with new technology, right? So, like some of the figures that I remember buying from Reaper when I was in the Army, so that'd be 90, 91, 92. Um, they're re-sculpting and they're using that new black plastic, they use, which I'll tell you what is really good. The Reaper blacks are absolutely, I mean, amazing. They're just good. So that's just another company that's really upped their game, you know, between Reaper and the other one I always bring up as far as companies that upping their game is um, War Games Atlantic. War Games Atlantic over the last couple of years, I'll tell you, they went from the company you buy crappy miniatures from just because to making some lines of minis that are like freaking out of this world, just really good, you know. Um, I would believe that. I have actually, on occasion, because you know Florida, uh, there have been a few occasions where I did actually just take the resins out of the cleaner, you know, because I've got my mercury that would, you know, and do all that, and then I would just sit them out in the sun and maybe come back after a little bit and roll them over. Maybe that's why some of my early prints were very brittle. That could 100% be the thing. When I started using the more ABS style print, you know, resin, that they stopped being freaking brittle. But like I said, the cost was prohibitive between the just the resin actually was a little bit cost prohibitive to me. Uh, Figure how many miniatures for $50. $50. Let's say $50. You can buy 10 Reaper character models since most of them are like 490. So can you make more miniatures cheaper 3D printing? Absolutely you can. I mean with a liter of resin, you could probably print out 100 figures. But if you're really lazy, then it's like I don't want to bother with all that shit. I don't want playing around with the resin, which may or may not destroy my kidneys. I don't want to, you know, just any of it. And that's pretty much what happened with me. I just decided, you know, this stuff is, you know, it's not great for your health. And so I'm just going to go ahead and kick back and just, if I need miniatures, I'll buy Reaper. Uh, Plus, one bad thing when you have a 3D printer, you have almost, if you're me, not everybody, I guess, is going to be this way. But me, if I have a printer and I have resin, I'm printing something, right? And then you end up printing hundreds of miniatures for shit you're never going to use. And they're just taking up all kinds of valuable room. And then you end up boxing them up and just sending them out into the world to people for free because, you know, it's almost like owning a 3D printer gives you the obligation to use it. If that, you know, if you guys dig what I'm saying there. And yeah, so I have filled my garage pretty much with shelf after shelf after shelf of 3D printed bullshit, right? And I need to start getting rid of that too. I hate to say it because I 3D printed so many BattleTech mechs. Yeah, I'm going to start getting rid of them because I have the actual. Hey, Ungar, what's up, my brother? I have the actual BattleTech mechs. You know what I mean? So I don't need the 3D prints ever. It was just a thing. There's a few of them I'll probably keep just because. Like I got this metallic purple Warhammer sitting in front of me. Yeah, that's a 3D print, but I'm never getting rid of it. You know, as a matter of fact, I'm going to paint parts of it white so that looks more like the Warhammer and all of the thumbnails where I'm destroying Hungar's Draconis Combine. Well, I'm having a better day now that I've saw my brother, but yeah. And like Paul said, because I printed up so many of those mechs back in the day with not the greatest resin, a lot of them, you blink at them wrong and boom, they're breaking. And you can glue them back together, but for me, that's just a pain in the ass. It's like, I don't want to spend half of my life just over here gluing these mechs together because, one of them fell on a table and literally broke from just tipping over on a table. That's not a thing I want to do. Well, unfortunately, Mobius, you live in the Great White North, and they hate when I send anything through the mail north of the border. It's like they have some kind of weird, unknowable issue with that. The last time I tried to send anything north of the border was to Dungeon Professor. And I'll tell you what, Canada did everything they could to make sure I couldn't do it. They were all about that, boy. They're like, I'm like, I would like to send this book to my good friend Aaron. And they're like, well, that'll cost you $50. I'm like, the book don't even cost $50. What the hell are you talking about? So I ended up just sending him a couple boxes of kobolds, which were much cheaper to send for some reason. I am not sure how Canada figures out its postage prices, but yeah, it's like to send to Canada, they measure like the cubic inches or centimeters, I guess for you guys, of the box, the weight, etc., and then just randomly charge you like, you know. And this is something I've complained about for a very long time because I can send stuff to Buffalo. You know what I mean? Yeah, I can send stuff to Buffalo all I want. And Buffalo is not even far from the Canadian border. I could send stuff to Minot, North Dakota for not that much because I did. There was this time I had this friend that went to university at Minot State, and he asked me if he could have some battle mechs to play with. So I sent him a shit ton of them. Didn't cost that much, except for the mechs because they never came back. But, I like to bring that up every now and then just to harass the person in question, because, that's just how I am sometimes. What in the hell is going on with my paint here? It is acting like it does not want to comply. So, yeah, that's basically what I'm talking about, though. It's like if you're in North Dakota or Detroit, you're literally directly across from Canada. And yet, I can send something to Detroit for pretty much nothing. But as soon as it has to cross into Canada, I just multiply the postage by like 10. And I hate that. As a matter of fact, even though I don't really think America should take over Canada, I do think one of the benefits would be that I could probably then send my buddies up there stuff without it being such a pain in the ass for everybody involved. That would, I mean, that's okay. That's a silver lining. I mean, the negative is we'd probably have to send ICE up there to deport all the people you guys keep letting in. But outside of that, though, I could send Father Aaron a bunch of the stuff I've always wanted to send him and it not break the bank. So I guess it would be a mixed bag, right? So this color I'm liking, but unfortunately, like a lot of these express or speed paints, this being one of them, it seems like they're really good to put the base coat on, but if you want your miniature, your mech, whatever, to actually look good, you will end up having to dry brush the damn thing with the color that's like, you know, one part of the triad higher up in brightness, which means that, you know, the army painter or whatever just basically ends up shading the cracks of the mech, but it's not actually really the color of the mech. And in this case, this thing was painted Lancer Gray, which is, of course, German Field Gray, which is, of course, green because, you know, can't do anything easy around here. And it just looks like splotchy and not very good. So I went and gave it a pretty light dry brush of just German Field Green. And so there you've got your Wentworth German Field Green, and it's going to get camo. The camo will be a red brown and a dark yellow or an ochre. So, well, I'm going to do this guy like Eastern Front camo. So yeah, that's going to be a red, like a almost clay brown color, a red clay brown color, and then it's going to be an ochre yellow, which I could easily use this dark sand for the ochre yellow. Um, the Germans would call it Dunkelgreb, which actually means dark yellow. But I don't know where my Dunkelgreb is. I haven't actually used it since I was interested in painting World War II stuff, you know. And that's been a long time. And then I gave most of my armies away, you know, like I gave Holy Diver my American armor stuff. I gave Basic Expert my Stalingrad um, Germans. I kept my American Infantry Company and I kept the Soviets. But yeah, the uh, the Panzer. Well, no, they weren't Panzer. The Grenadier Company I gave to Basic Expert was pretty badass. I had like a multi-year uh, half-track tractor that had a flat back on it, so you know, flatbed, and it had like Fleffering or whatever they got, 20 millimeter dual barreled any aircraft gun mounted on the back of the half track. So that was more of like, I guess, a tournament kind of army because, you know, if you showed up to the match and like your opponent thought they're going to be slick with like aircraft and stuff, it had the stuff, you know, to like handle pretty much anything, you know. For anti tank, it had a couple of Stug uh, F8s. For anti-air, it had, the flak Verin mounted on a half track. And then, even though they were Grenadiers, there were a few Opel Blitz trucks in the Army just in case you needed to move some units around quick. And there was a couple of command cars and stuff. But I based that unit when I built it off of the 100 and something Grenadier regiment, because that's, I again, I'm a fluff player now, so if I'm making a historic army, I tend to want to base it on an actual historic army. So my U.S. infantry company was based off of Third Infantry, and I even went and painted the little white and blue striped square on the shoulders. Every one of them has it. That was a pain to hand paint, but and it too is pretty set up for about everything. You've got bazooka teams and 50 cal heavy machine gun teams and whatever. So even though it's a fluffy army, let's say, still comes equipped with whatever you need to handle whatever your opponent throws at you, while being in a historically accurate army. And yeah, I like that. So, Hungar, how's your stepson? Let's see. All quiet on the Eastern Front. Yeah, wrong war, but yeah. That was World War I, I think. However, in one of my favorite TV shows when I was a kid, Hogan's Heroes, that was like the big threat. You know, if you piss the commanders off, they were always threatening to send like Schultz or whoever to the Eastern Front. What is my take on Condor DM? I have to be honest, I don't have one so much. Like, I have mocked him in the past a little bit, ridiculed him a little bit. But at the same time, I've also, when he talked to me about it, said that he could absolutely come on the channel and talk with me. So yeah, I don't think I have a lot of opinion um, about him either way. Now, you guys all know, especially if you're here yesterday, you all know that Double D is one of my favorite YouTubers, and I really like the guy. I feel like he and I just have a lot in common. We're about the same age, you know. We have a lot of the same everything about us, right? I'll be honest, I don't care for the Vultureverse at all. I watch it, I bullshit around, but I prefer his other show way better because uh, now OGGM, and that's not Off Grid Gamer, but actual OGGM, a man who, by all whatever, hates my guts, like everything about me, he hates, right? And he said it pretty openly, and I'm like, well, that's cool, whatever. Um, One wise thing that man said to me a long time ago, which he has now apparently forgotten, is that when Condor attacks you and stuff, you're just better off ignoring it and moving on with your day. Now, he's the one who told me this, right? And I actually took it to heart. I was like, yeah, that's not a bad idea. Just screw this guy. I mean, he's just some guy. I mean, it's not like Condor has zero effect on my life, and I have zero effect on his. Right? I'm not going to cruise up to frickin' the Trailer Park Boys area where he lives and talk any shit about him. And he typically, whether he talks shit about me or not, I'm pretty indifferent to, you know. So yeah, I guess that's my feelings about Condor. My feelings are I don't have any feelings for Condor. I don't want to go out of my way to mock him. I wouldn't waste my time. Now, I can't say that Double D's wasting his time because a lot of people tune in specifically to see him take the piss out of Condor. So it's working for him, but I wouldn't do it. And also, I don't want anybody to think I'm saying this as if I feel like I'm, what's it called? I'm not trying to be superior or aloof to anyone else because I'm not. It's just people who have hung out here for a while, whether they like it or not, they know what you get when you come to my live stream. And that's basically me talking to you while I'm doing this about whatever the hell you want to. Except sometimes I do go off on tangents and whatever, right? About things. But I am always going to give you my opinions unvarnished, even when sometimes it causes people to actively hate my guts and consider me to be a horrible person. Um, because I think that's like the least I could do for you guys. I mean, yeah, it's like I don't have the production quality or the desire to get the production quality of bigger YouTubers, let's say. And mostly I just want to talk and just make a little connection about stuff. Be like, yeah, I like this game or that game, and I'm painting this or that. So that's just me. Like I said yesterday when Double D showed up, that's all we did. We talked about whatever we were painting and a little bit of sports and because even though I don't watch sports, I do occasionally keep up with scores just so that I kind of know what's going on. Maybe just for old times' sake. But see, that's what I like. I like when you guys, like Steven just did, I like when you guys ask me questions about what I think about something, and then I tell you. Well, I mean, I try to be a good person. I really do. And I think I'm doing all right these days, compared. But yeah, I mean, now I will say this: I don't hate Condor.
What up, my brother?
What's up, homie? Yeah, I don't hate Condor. I definitely don't hate Scott Garrity. I actually like Scott Garrity a lot, honestly.
I like my brother.
I like you. Um, which is not to say that, I doubt Scott and I are ever going to be best friends, but yeah, I like what he does. He's a crazy bastard, but okay, who is it, right? The biggest problem I think with like if I were going to give any advice to Condor, it would be, hey man, how about you just stop talking shit? You know,
They
like
all take themselves way too seriously.
yeah, That's what I would say to Condor. I'd say,
It's like the comedian said. It's all a joke.
right. That's what I would say. I'd say stop talking shit. Talk about whatever you want to, but just stop talking shit because, you know, people are going to come after you and and you deserve it because you were talking shit. Song of, okay, Amazing Swordsman. See, I don't even call it that. I just got Hyperborea. But I'm
Dude, I'm
glad
flipping.
that you showed up to listen to that. And I absolutely have a great time when people ask me
Our
like
one
how I
buddy,
do whatever I do in my game.
brother, our one friend online here. His picture is the SWAT team guy.
Decado.
Yeah, he was showing pictures of his game he just played recently, and they had Hyperborea character sheets.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the game.
Decado was I think he was a Leo, so law enforcement guy or something. And he might have been military before that. I think so. I have a hard time. I'm a dragon master, lol, right? And he is just a really good guy. He was playing a lot of Castles and Crusades,
Yeah, and then he was doing Ravenloft.
and then yeah, but if he's decided to pick up the Hyperborea game, then I think he is going to enjoy it
Yep.
tremendously.
And yes, my stepson has been keeping me busy, but he's doing better. He's home.
Good. Uh, and it is what I've said about it. You know, it's like I don't think Hyperborea is necessarily for everyone.
No.
But if you're one of those guys that ever collected like Weird Tales, Savage Sword of Conan, you read Lovecraft, you know, you kind of like that genre,
If you
then
like,
it's definitely for you.
yeah,
Oh, so he's a Leo, but no. Okay. Yeah. Then pretty much that's what I'd say. You
if
know,
you like grittiness, then Hyperborea is for you.
well, it's got to be gritty because if it's not gritty, then it's not, you know, like Savage Swords.
Yeah, if it's not gritty, it's not Hyperborea. That's why if you like grittiness, it's for you.
Right.
Look at him arguing my point, everybody.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying. Yeah. I mean, because who would ever think about playing a sword and sandals game without it being gritty as hell, right?
We're both wearing red shirts today.
We are. Mine's got a picture of you on it.
Mine's got a picture of the navigator.
Nice. So yeah, there's definitely, you know, which doesn't mean there isn't room for like fun and laughing and joking and whatever because there is.
Stephen, I
Um,
love Thundar the Barbarian, and I've
oh
heard
yeah,
people say that it
Thundar
was
the
crap.
Barbarian. Because with Hyperborea, not only is it a somewhat flat continent floating around Saturn in a future so distant that our sun has turned into a red giant, but it's like everything that could happen kind of can, you know? So if you're the DM, of course you're going to read the little, you know, thing at the back of the DM's book to figure out, you know, what the hell's going on, right? And then you can immediately just start doing whatever the hell you want and, you know, not even worry about it.
Yeah, you can go buck wild.
You can go buck wild. Like I said before, you can have H.P. Lovecraft working in a library at a mages guild just
Like,
because that's
like
what he's
certain
doing.
people actually do.
That's what I did.
Hmm.
So, you know, in my campaign world, Lovecraft never died. He just got thrown through time and space and ended up in Hyperborea. Whether And the fact that some people might be like, but they found his body in a hotel room, and it's like, so?
They find a lot of bodies in a lot of hotel rooms.
Well, no, I mean, because if you think about like the dreamlands, the way the
Yeah,
dreamlands work, you leave your
you're not
wife
getting what
behind,
I'm
but
saying.
then, you
I'm
know,
not. I'm saying that not all bodies found are actually the bodies they're looking for.
right. But, and I do kind of, as a Lovecraft fan, there is a part of me that almost views Hyperborea as like the dreamlands or an extension of it, you know. Um, Now, if you've never read the Dreamlands Chronicles, that might sound a little confusing, but basically, it just means that every living being on Earth throughout time shares one dream. Now, what you're doing in the dream can be drastically different than what other people are doing in their dream, but you're all in basically the same dream realm. And that means, in theory, you can interact with each other while you're in that dream realm, right? And so Hyperborea, while it's as real as any other thing is, may or may not be, fashioned from the dreamlands. And yeah, and yes, it can be very grim dark. I mean, the fact that like the way the deities are, it's like the deities in this game are unlike any deities in any other game that anyone may have ever played. You know, like when you're in a group with somebody and they actively are like a worshiper of Cthulhu. And well, actually, I don't think a lot of people would like that. I think Cthulhu is pretty, you know, but you can have a character that's a worshiper of Yandi, and Yandi is either, depending on your point of view, Yandi is either Shub-Niggurath, the horned god, with the black goat with 1,000 young, or Nyarlathotep itself. So,
I'd
you
like
know,
that for those too, Stephen.
yep. See, I like Dark Sun, but I don't know anyone who ever managed to pull off a whole campaign of Dark
Yeah.
Sun. In my experience, like people would always get together and say, "Hey, let's play some Dark Sun," and you'd always be like, "Yeah, that sounds awesome," and then after about a game or two, it would just die.
I read something really interesting the other day, brother. It was, if you're awake in the middle of the night, it's because you're not sleeping.
Yeah, that's lame. Thank you for
You're
you know
welcome. I thought it
wasting
was good.
everybody's time.
That's what I'm here for. I'm the
Vision
time
of the
spinner.
Dreamlands in a Call of Cthulhu game. Yeah, you just got to go down the what is it, the 1,000 steps of slumber or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I cut
sepsis.
my beard down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. He's got to go to the store and get him some man packs.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Hunger. I appreciate that.
You throw me under the
Um,
bus, I got to do the same. Stephen Kennedy's laughing.
um, and yes, Dagua lives, and don't I know it? Since the asshole next to me talking shit is a cleric of Dagua.
And look who hasn't shaved his beard. That's right.
Well, maybe because I didn't shave it, maybe I wore it off.
My beard is glorious. I water my beard every day.
I'm just gonna do this.
I can do that. See, check this out. Watch. I got a full head of hair. Yeah.
Anyway, so ignoring my brother, who is worthy of being ignored, um, and deserves nothing but to be ignored, honestly.
I deserve
Uh,
nothing but scorn.
Scorn for you.
Face blue smiling. That's right.
Yeah, Hyperborea does actually give you a setting where you can really get down with like a lot of themes and stuff that you might not be able to fit into a lot of games. Dark Sun was a great idea, but I don't think anyone ever kept a campaign going.
It's next to impossible.
Yeah, so and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, yeah, we played that for like over a year, didn't we, House?
Yeah, I had the best character.
Yeah, your character was pretty good. Um,
And I will
but
be
if I
called.
were ever going to run it again, I have all the second edition stuff. And you all have heard me say this a million times. I just run the second edition. I don't need the fourth edition. I can live without it. All right, so I've really thinned down this Nuln oil because I want it to shade, but I want it to be very gentle.
Yeah.
So let's see
Well,
if I.
I'm going to get ready to take Corn Dog to work.
Well, okay. Thank you for
But
dropping in and being a disruptive ass.
that's what I do. I'm glad you recognize my greatness.
I'm glad that Cold Iron always shows me destroying you in all of my thumbnails,
Okay, that's cool.
and you crying in the seat of your freaking lame ass weave
Hey,
Draconis Mac.
hey. Pimps don't cry.
Meanwhile, my house Merrick Mac is just curb stomping the shit out of you.
And and I will request you to say either my name or my title when you address me. The Abominable Homeman or Homemaster, one or the other. And when you say the Abominable Homeman, I'm like slick back. You got to say the whole thing
I'm
every
not
time.
saying any of that. You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to call you a Draconis Combine loser.
Yeah, loser Homeman.
See? How do you feel about that? Loser.
Happy 420, Steve Kennedy.
Yeah, 420.
The
You
Fuhrer's
know what's
birthday.
weird is a lot of people are like, "Happy 420, man. Let's get high." This is the Austrian painter's birthday.
Yeah, it's the Fuhrer's birthday. That's why I celebrate. I,
You are just the edgiest of edgy boys, aren't you?
I'm an edgy boy. I'm the edgy lord. I'm the Homemaster.
You're, yeah. Except by hole, you mean like the hole in the ground.
Yeah. I love you, my brother.
I love you too.
Everybody,
So I put a
have a good day.
very thin. I just picked this guy up and started painting him, and I put a very thin shade on him. So that's what we got going on there. And of course, I'm going to have to take the metallics when that shade dries and go back and do the. People sometimes are not happy when they roll up Ratcatcher as their starting career. And those people are stupid because they don't seem to understand that all of the abilities and the starting attributes and everything from a Ratcatcher can lead on to an extremely powerful um, fighter type, thief type. I mean, the fact that the rat catcher is basically immune to disease right off the bat. I mean, I currently use most because Shadow says it like full on the Spanish way. Yeah, I am pretty much all. I use normal. Got a connection problem. Come on. Why is this acting up? Okay. Now it's done being a dumbass. So I use a lot of Citadel shades. I use some Army Painter shades too, but this, Gnome Black and Agrex Earthshade are kind of, they're just like standard. And then, yeah, like I've got here, I've got a lot of Vallejo model color or paint color or whatever. But I've also got the Vallejo Express collection box. Yeah, there was a glitch for sure, which has, all of the Vallejo Express paints. And all that is pretty much Army Painter. If I play Mech Warrior, it'll be in person. Pretty much every game I play is in person. I rarely, if ever, play anything online. I think one time I ran my brother through a game online just to show uh, some people how to run Conan 2.20. So me and my brother, we actually live streamed me running him through a Conan 2.20 adventure. It was like a 3-hour video. Shouldn't have deleted it. Shonner said that he thought I was a great DM and my brother was being a great player. Even though I will admit, I wish Hungar were here to hear this. My brother is very give or take when it comes to playing role playing games. Sometimes he's the best player at your table, and sometimes he is the worst. And pretty much, if you're not me, good luck keeping him in check, right? When he starts going down whatever rabbit hole he's going down. If you're me, I threaten him with violence and big brother fury, and then he'll calm down a little bit. But and he's pulled that on a couple of people who wanted to run games online, and he'd be like, yeah, I'll join. And then it's like, I always hear from them because, he's my brother. And it's always like, oh, yeah, it started out great. Everything was great. And then your brother just started, going off. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds pretty familiar. Um, Even at my table, there's been a time or two where I'll be running the game and all of a sudden he'll pull his phone out and he'll want to start showing off cat memes to somebody or something. This is when he was down here, and I would have to literally threaten him and be like, look, if you don't put that phone up, I'm going to bust you upside your head. Now, when you play online, you can't really do that. And I'm not even saying I actually would have done that, but I've had to definitely let him know I was not happy. So, Mike, yeah, the rat catcher, like I'm saying, some people don't like that start because you're basically a super poor, lower class, whatever. But the kind of characters you can build off of that foundation are some of the best characters you'll ever have. It's kind of like, and they removed this, I think, from fourth edition because I don't remember seeing it. But in second edition, you could just randomly be a laborer. That could be your starting career, laborer. Like your dude moves rocks from point A to point B or whatever the hell you do, right? And it sounds like such a shitty career because you don't get too many skills or whatever, but you get like the ability to raise your strength, like strength raises like 2 or 3 damn times. And that means if you're playing human with an average strength of say 30 something, by the time you get done with your laborer career, you probably got 40 something strength, maybe higher if you had a higher strength to begin with, right? And then now that you've got a 40 strength or a 50 strength on the outside, that's when you decide to save some XP and move into like some kind of warrior class. Because you're hitting like a brick, right? Since your damage is modified by the first number of your strength score. So having a 50 strength plus 5 damage in Warhammer is brutality. I mean, that's kind of shit you'd expect from an ogre or something. And you can definitely 100% as a human or dwarf get that if you start with laborer. Now, in the long run, you might have to spend more XP on skills that you didn't get. But, well, 4E, Stephen, you and I have talked about this, I believe. 4E actually, the rule set was not horrible. It was just the presentation was not something I wanted to be a part of. And I'm not trying to sit here and be like anti-fat, because I am aware that I am not a skinny guy. I'm a fat guy myself. But when I'm playing a role-playing game, I don't want open to a character page and see like a 450-pound woman that's supposed to be a smuggler. That's just, it knocks me right out of any sort of being able to believe that world, Like I always say, every time I see that picture, the first thing I think is, what's she smuggling? Donuts? I mean, like there's no way. How could that person be a smuggler even? It's like no one's going to take her serious, and if she ever has to run from, the guard, she's probably just going to have a heart attack and die. So, yeah, I just did not care for any part of that. Oh, the vicious little dog. Yeah. Yeah, that's a bonus right there. Plus, quite possibly being one of the few people in the entire world that is aware of what actually lives in the sewers. Not that you can talk about it, because you'll probably die if you do, but at least you're aware. But yeah, don't talk about it. If the Skaven don't kill you, then the Empire will. It's super important that nobody knows, that the Skaven actually are a real thing. That's just not like something you can ever tell. But even without all that, like I said, just the fact that the character starts with like the ability to be functionally immune to disease and a high resistance to poison, all that sort of stuff. That is just great stuff, just amazing good stuff that any adventurer of any career later on is going to want to have those abilities. I mean, I don't care what your class is, the fact that you can, or your career, because let's say it right, whatever your career is doesn't matter, because having the ability to not die of disease is always going to be better than not having it, right? So I think that's a problem. Some people want to start the game immediately as like a squire or an adept, or some of those really cool kind of careers that are very rare, and they don't understand the whole point of Warhammer is over the adventures, making the character from your lowly sleeping in poo and blood life to something else, like you build on your foundation. And a guy who starts the game as a squire and eventually becomes a knight will never be as good as the rat catcher who eventually become a squire and then a knight. And that goes for any of that. You can start as an adept and become a warrior priest, but if you started as a rat catcher or laborer and then become an adept or warrior priest, you're going to be way better than the other guy, you know, just because. And those two aren't the only ones that are really good like that, but they're two of the ones that, you know, pop up a lot, you know. You got this guy wandering around town with his angry dog, a pole with 1 by 10 rats on it, and you know, some abilities, and it's like, all right, you know, let's do this thing, right? Anyway, so I've rambled on, guys, too much about it, but yeah, 4E was the bubble wrap version. Um, but yeah, that's just my opinion on Warhammer. Now, Hyperborea is Hyperborea is all about the flavor of it, and that's what I like about Hyperborea. It's definitely got this kind of weird uh, things are not exactly what you think they are. Um, and over time, the characters can start like they can start out just thinking that, hey, this is just the way it is or whatever, right? And then over time, they can start unraveling some of the secrets behind Hyperborea. Hell, if you want to get crazy, you could have them find a way to teleport themselves to Saturn. If you've ever read the Clark Ashton Smith tells, humans can survive on Saturn. I mean, it sucks, but they can survive there. The big thing is that Saturn is basically completely cloud covered. Most of the rivers, or all of the rivers, are mercury. Um, there's a lot of hostile animals that live there, as well as some beings that may or may not, but probably are related to Sathagua, and different kinds of humans as well. Um, so if you figure out how to survive on Saturn, which has another name, on Saturn they don't call it Saturn. You could happily survive there for the rest of your life, assuming something doesn't kill you. You know, like in the storyline, the mage and the inquisitor that end up fleeing to well, the mage flees, the inquisitor chases. They end up on Saturn, and they figure out, you know, you can get water from these mushrooms because there are a lot of mushrooms growing on Saturn, and you can eat the mushrooms, and there's some you know, pack animals that some of the human type creatures use that you could eat. um, and so they have this whole grand adventure. If you've never read it and you don't want to read it, but maybe you want to listen to some of it, the Hyperborean Chronicles are on YouTube. They're like 6 hours long, but it's all of the Hyperborean stories that Clark Ashton Smith ever wrote, which is a big, you know, a big thing, right? And you can kind of get the flavor of what Hyperborea is like just by listening to some of his stories, like, you know. And then, of course, Conan had to deal with the Sagua once in an adventure of his. And uh, so, yeah. Now, one thing that bears saying about Hyperborea is that I like the lack of demi-humans, really, as far as for being player characters. I think that makes I just like that, Um, oh, so yeah, Steve's heard it. The door to Saturn. Yeah, yeah, because he had that little thing that he opened and it, and then the Inquisitor jumped through, and that was during a time in Hyperborea where the Sagawa was being basically the followers of the Sagawa were being persecuted by the followers of Yonde. And Yonde, like I said, is either Nyarlathotep or the Black Goat of the Woods. I tend to think it's the Black Goat of the Woods since it often appears as an antlered, horned, feminine thing, right? Uh, and Shub-Niggurath from H.P. Lovecraft is definitely a um, European fertility goddess. In a lot of Lovecraftian stories, that is the goddess the Druids worshipped and made sacrifice to. Not just the Druids, but pretty much all these cultures that had fertility goddesses. It was the Black Goat of the Wood with 1,000 young. And in my own Call of Cthulhu setting, which is set in eastern Kentucky in the hollers, yeah, it's her. And you know, they're horrible inbred rituals that they do. Um, and then Desagua, the bat, sloth, toad, whatever, um, you know, it's hard to say if he is like, you can't say he's evil because he doesn't actually care about anything. That's kind of the thing with him. It's like, as a great old one, he is completely neutral to pretty much everything. And he's super lazy and he just kind of lives deep down under the earth in his caverns. And uh, he is a patron of Hyperboreans for some reason. Like in the ancient past, the Sagwa actually took the Hyperborean people from the earth and took them to Saturn, where he taught them a lot of sorcery and stuff like that. And then eventually he brought them back to Earth and they took over. But then eventually, the continent of Hyperborea sank. And then instead of letting it just sink under the ocean and be gone forever, it got moved off of the Earth and out into the middle of space, you know. And then the Green Plague happened and wiped out most of humanity, including the Hyperboreans. And I have kind of in my game, and I don't know how you guys feel about it. All right, have a great drive, Mobius. I kind of believe that the Green Plague was created by the Serpent Men because mainly the Serpent Men who have pre-existed humanity of any form of human, they have been kind of ordered by the deities they worship to try to figure out a way to destroy humanity. Well, actually, they wouldn't mind destroying all mammals, but humans specifically, right? And so they kind of hang out in their hidden laboratories, just constantly mixing up weird alchemical stuff. And so there is a part of me that wants to believe that maybe the Serpent Men actually invented the Green Plague that nearly, as I said, wiped all of humanity out. But unfortunately for these Serpent Men, enough humans survived that uh, they could repopulate. So Yeah, when my group they actually encountered some serpent men deep under the earth, and it was a lab, and the serpent men were all in there, like, mixing up alchemical bullshit and poisons and whatnot, and yeah, it turned into a fight, and it was not an easy fight because the serpent men, a lot of them are sorcerers and mages, and some of them can even be clerics to their god, which is Yig, the god of serpents. And the players up until that point had never really got into a battle with a group of casters, magic users, right? So things got bad quick, right? Things got bad quick. But one thing they're super happy about, even though, you know, they in game don't know, is the fact that they did find a laser pistol, and but they just think it's a like a weird wand. So yeah, the warlock in the group actually is carrying a laser pistol. So, but yeah, you've heard me say the story. You know, they attack the serpent people. The serpent people won initiative. One of them cast a hold spell, which immediately ganked half the group right on the spot because the players sucked at their saves. So then the witch in the group started removing curses and stuff, trying to get them unheld. And the assassin in the group snuck up behind a serpentman and tried to assassinate him, completely shanked the roll. So that serpentman turned around and touched her and did a polymorph other, turned her into a rat. I mean, so the combat got very, very desperate. Half of the party was down, and it was at that point that the fourth level Norse berserker decided to start foaming at the mouth and berserking. And that was an eye opener for me because I had not, I mean, I'd read the class, but I didn't really understand what all of the bonuses they got meant. So when she waded in, she was attacking 3 times every 2 rounds with a great axe, +9 to hit, +8 damage or some shit. And yeah, she just started waylaying Serpentmen. But as awesome as that was, it could have all went wrong because she killed the last Serpentman while she still had many rounds of the Berserk Rage left. And she had to start making saves to prevent herself from just going ahead and killing the rest of the party. And I'll be honest with you guys, the way that battle had went, if the Berserker had turned around and just started going nuts on the party, they would all die. You know, they were so messed up and whatever that it just been like. Most of them didn't have enough hit points to actually live through 2 of her attacks. And most of the characters in my group, because of their class and everything, have an average armor class of like 6. So, you know, if you look at your attack matrix and you find 6, and then you figure a person gets +9 to hit that, you're literally talking about a person needing like a 4 or 5 to hit you. And then doing a die 10 +8 damage. It is a nightmare if you're on the receiving end of that. You know. But another result of that is the berserker tries not to berserk. You know, it's like something that she only does when shit has severely hit the fan, because she's afraid that one of these days she's going to go into that berserk rage and not um, make her roll. At which point, yeah, she's basically going to wipe her whole group out, and or they're going to have to kill her or something. You know, the best case would be that she berserks, takes a swing at somebody, they live. The cleric casts a whole person, she fails her save. Hell, I don't even know if a whole person will work though, because when she's berserk, she might get so many bonuses versus mind control and stuff like that that yeah, the whole person may not even be an option. I mean, if I were playing the game, my option would be to run because, if I can run, eventually she'll just wear herself out. And then, we can meet back up and do something. But yeah, Hyperborea, you don't have to play it as brutal as I do, but it really is designed to be played that way. It's not designed. I mean, if you want to play high fantasy with like all of that sort of stuff, there's no shame in playing Greyhawk or Forgotten Realms or any other campaign you want to play. That's perfectly acceptable. And I would say have fun doing it. I mean, Greyhawk's a great campaign, the original. I don't know how any of the newer stuff will be, but hopefully Luke Gygax will do a good job and honor the memory of his father and keep Greyhawk and not turn it into uh, just another facsimile of the year 2000 whatever Seattle, which is what they did with Forgotten Realm. So yeah, if he does that, then I mean things are going to be good, I think. But if he turns Greyhawk City into Seattle Part 3, since Waterdeep is Part 2, then I would just stick with either the Goat Box or the Gazetteer for sure. Now, Northwind Games is working on an actual setting book, and I'm excited for that. It's going to not only have the map, but it's going to actually explain what stuff means. Uh, but one thing that they done, and I really like, one thing Jeff Tillarian has done is while he does explain some parts of the world, he leaves about 70 or 80% of it completely blank. For like, if you look at the atlas, you'll find that there are towns and villages and cities scattered all over this atlas, and none of them are named. And then there's a bunch of villages and stuff scattered around, and a lot of them are named. So you can see like the parts that are for if you're playing through the modules and stuff, and then the parts where you can create your own town and do your own thing. And I did that pretty early on when I ran the Goodman Games. I think it's like something of the ancients. And so I named a blank town just a bit north of Comorium near Swampgate. Um, I named it Herat. And Herat is the name of the town in that Goodman Games adventure. So now the town of Herat, where the player characters have been, 100% exists. And they know about where it is, near the edge of the swamps, north of Comorium, uh, just to the, I guess you would say east, if you wanted to use that direction, of Swampgate. So, Now we know if the players ever want to go back to Herat for any reason, we know where it is and they can go. And that's cool, you know. I've named one of the unmarked towns in the far bottom of the campaign world into Sparta. And the reason is that because the Greek player in my party, um, he come from a town that was settled entirely by Spartans from Lacedaemon, and and they built their own village, and they're doing their thing there. And he decided to leave his home and go out into the rest of the world and explore around. While uh, unfortunately, where New Sparta is built is kind of close to Orcrist, and that's where all of the demon orcs live. So there's a little bit of whatever going there, and then there's another city near the coast that's basically Nova Roma, because everyone who lives there was, a Roman citizen before they made the switch over to Hyperborea. Um, so you can do all of that sort of stuff, and it's wide open. It's super wide open for that. Yes, this one I'm looking forward to running eventually. Port Greeley, when they get done up in Zimbala. But yep, not only is this a great adventure, it's also named after an incredibly good Lovecraft story. I love the fact that you've got like your typical kind of a sailing ship you might see in Hyperborea. And this adventure actually has 5 adventures in it, or 5-3. Just some of them required the players to actually be a little bit higher level. So when they get back to Comorium, which is where they're heading, as soon as they get done in Zimbala, they'll be able to start looking at the other adventures. And I have the big map of Comorium, and it actually has a little arrow that says, the Silvery Ill Tavern and Tull's Boats and all that. So the adventure was actually really good, really tough, really tough. Uh, you know, and really sad too, but very good, very good. They missed a lot of the treasure in it, but whatever. And then at some point they will do the Lamia's Heart. And if I need to kick it up a notch to make it more challenging, I will. And then eventually they will do the Brazen Bull. And again, I can always kick up the uh, Thaumagoraga. I think one of the players in my group actually is a worshiper of Thaumagoraga. So, that could make things different. But yeah, like Rog here, it says is a first level common male human or cleric. It's no problem for me to bump his ass up to provide more of a challenge to the group. Like Shazamir V's the zombie. He hit die 3, so maybe I'll make that hit die 5 or 6. Just again to update it for my party now. Which one? Oh yeah, Rats and Walls is amazing. And then what I was just talking about, this is another one I'm thinking about running for my group at some point, and it's Dungeon Crawl Classics for fifth level adventurers at least, and it's called Enter the Dagon. So I like the fact that it's making the play on words with Enter the Dragon, and it's Dagon. So, and of course, we all know by now, I think, that Dagon is one of the deities that is worshipped in Hyperborea. Dagon and Mother Hydra. They are like a big deal with, some coastal dwellers and deep ones, obviously. So, yeah, it's kind of like how all of the Eskimo that live in the Arctic area, which I'll just call north because the way the map is, even though it's not really north. Um, they're almost all worshippers of Cthulhu, the dreaming god. And but in Zimbala, a lot of the slaves that the Zimbalans have captured, who are mostly Eskimo, in my campaign, they have rejected Cthulhu and turned to the worship of Yog or Yag. And thus they become, worshippers of fierce beasts and cannibalism. So now I did that because there's an old Conan story where the tavern keeper has a deal with some slaves, and the slaves break into the tavern room, break into the guest room and kidnap whoever's in it, and they take them out into the woods to eat them because they worship Yag. And in that particular adventure, Conan figures out what's going on, and he knocks out the tavern keeper and ties him up. And then he chucks that guy in the room so that when the Darfarin show up to get their sacrifice/feast, they end up eating the tavern keeper, that had been betraying people all that time. And so I just took that Conan story and Aladred or Lost City could 100% fit, and not only fit, but be like, holy shit, As a matter of fact, I would say Lost City or Aladred fit more in Hyperborea than in Mystera. You know what I mean? Because in Hyperborea, dinosaurs are an actual thing in some places. Like you've got the one adventure, the the Fane of the Reptile God. I've got that book, and it's basically, you go to this jungle island and you sneak around and you break into this freaking temple devoted to a reptile god, and then you fight serpent men and dinosaurs, and including like velociraptors and T-Rexes and all kinds of shit. So the idea that you might travel across the ocean and find a small island somewhere out there that's covered in like dinosaurs and primitive humans, even, I mean, I don't know what they were supposedly shooting for with the humans in Isle of Dread, but in Hyperborea, you could say that they could be Maori, they could be Polynesians of some sort, not Maori, who are also Polynesians. They could be like Aztecs. I mean, they could literally be some actual real world culture that had been shunted through time and space to this island, and then they could be Africans of some sort. You could roll up and see just a whole tribe of Africans like King Kong, living on the frickin' their side of the wall from where all the dinosaurs and shit are. And actually, now that I've said that might be even cooler, the players show up and encounter like, you know, straight up dark skinned Africans on an island doing whatever they're doing. And then, you know, you go out there and start encountering dinosaurs and all the other weird ass shit. And then, if you want, the one creatures that live in the hot springs and control everyone's mind, um, you could almost consider them to be like, you could either consider them to be like on the same level as like the Migo, or if you want to get really nuts with it, you could exchange them out for Migo and just say that there's an ancient colony of Migo living in that mountain. Yeah, you could have Zulu hiding on one side of the wall, and then instead of the fluke things that live in the hot water, you could have like a small group of Migo who have been like living on that mountain mining materials that they need because that's what Migo do. And it could actually have been the Migo that was doing things to F everything up. Um, and then, of course, the players could be fighting. They would call them dragons, but you and I would know they were Allosauruses and freaking T-Rexes and whatever. Um, you could even have them encounter cat people if that's what you wanted to do. I wouldn't. I would probably straight away replace the cat people with maybe Mongols. You know, that also had somehow got shot across time and space and ended up on the plateau. And instead of the little intelligent squirrel people, I might have a bunch of brown Jenkins hanging out, which would totally change that entire encounter. If instead of friendly little flying squirrel people is a bunch of brown Jenkinses hanging out, you know, waiting to kill and eat your ass and rip your heart out and whatever. Yeah, that would make that island a little bit scarier. So anyway, I'm going to try to show this off. We'll see how it stands out right now. So yeah, this is just you know, a wheeled attack vehicle and a simple paint job. It's just green with khaki stripes. Zulu would be actually really cool. You imagine the player's boat gets blown off course somewhere out in the endless sea, and then they finally see an island and they pull up and they see that village and they see that massive wall. And then the Zulu come running out, waving their shields and their epis around and whatever. So, I mean, step one of the adventure is the players trying to figure out how not to get murdered by the Zulus. Um, but then again, the Zulus might actually be very open minded for the players to try to help them out with, you know, all these dinosaurs or something. Yeah, yeah. Well, change out the dragon for just a big freaking T-Rex. You know what I mean? The players are going to think it's a dragon. I mean, in world history, up until around the 1800s, dinosaurs were called dragons, like by scientists. When they dug up bones, they called it a dragon. And then some scientists decided to change the name to a dinosaur. Even though for all of the hundreds of years that humanity had known of these bones, they assumed they were just different types of dragon. Because dragon didn't mean for them what it means for us. You know, when we think dragon, we think smog. When they thought dragon, they thought big freaking reptile. You know, so, and that's why you still have some creatures like the Komodo dragon is still called a Komodo dragon. You know, they didn't change the name, but yeah, man. And you could get even crazier with some of the encounters, especially if you know, like, well, first off, you know that any island like that has to have carnivorous apes. That just has to be a thing, right? Um, and if you want to throw a giant ape in there, I mean, obviously, duh, right? That's a thing. And another thing that makes it very, Lovecraftian, R.E. Howard, whatever, is the idea that there was a civilization on the island, but it's gone now, except for the remnants. And yeah, that's why I said I'd dump the dragon and go for the dinosaur, but just call it a dragon. I mean, like in Conan, he fought dinosaurs. He thought they were dragons. Yeah, you could throw like a King Kong type thing in there. You're going to have carnivorous apes. You might even have like cavemen somewhere, like Neanderthals or whatever still running about. Uh, you could pretty much play to every single one of those tropes about from all of those old movies where a group of scientists or whatever fly their damn airplane or boat and end up on some weird island full of things. Uh, all of those tropes you could hit, and I think that would be a lot of fun. And then the Lost City, same thing, same thing. Like you could even, and who knows, I might, but don't tell my players. You could even have this whole deal where the players are traveling across the deserts near Zimbala. Yeah, change the squirrels out with apes then. Yeah. But you could have a thing where the players are traveling across the desert of near Zimbala, right? Whether they're heading to Ithrium or whatever they're doing, and they encounter the top of the pyramid. And, the next thing you know, they're embroiled in this whole Lovecraftian bullshit where people are worshiping some kind of tentacle monster deep below the city, and there's all this other shit going on. And, of course, a lot of the people are dreaming because they can't stay off of the damn lotus. Um, or maybe some kind of mushroom they grow there. Could be either. It could be either. I mean, saying it's some kind of lotus would make it a lot more Clark Ashton Smith, Conan type, but it doesn't have to be that way. And otherwise, run the game pretty much exactly as written. So you've got these albino people who may or may not, at some point in the far distant past, been Egyptians. And now they're, you know, hiding out in their underground city, um, you know, doing their crazy shit. And then there's that other adventure too, the one where you journey into like a jungle area and there's like a city there. Okay, I might be confusing two of them. The one where all the people are albino and live underground, that's one of the B modules. Is that the Lost City? Or is that something else? And then there's the other one where you go into the jungle and there's this whole lost city there, and you end up encountering like I think Yanti or something like that. Yeah, you got the faction wars, Lotus Wine. Half of the time, people aren't even with it. They don't even recognize where they are or what even is going on. You've got the various three gods, which would be easy to just thumb through your Hyperborea Player's Handbook and figure out which of the three gods is closest to what they're worshiping. And then you don't even got to change what's its name, Zagzix or what, the tentacle thing down. Uh, I mean, if you really wanted to get into deep lore, which your players would probably not know, you could say that it's kind of some kind of summoned spawn of, you know, an old one or something, but you don't even got to say that, right? You can just let it all ride just as it is. And yeah. I think one of them, yeah, masks and all. Don't change any of that shit. And then the other adventure that would work really amazing is, again, the one I was talking about, where you go into a jungle and you find this old, overgrown city in the middle of the jungle. And you begin to explore it, and you run into, like, I think in that one you run into like intelligent spiders. Zargoth is his name. You're right. But you run into intelligent spiders, and you run into Yuan-ti, and so you have this whole thing going on down there, and you could leave the Yuan-ti as Yuan-ti and just say maybe there's some kind of Serpent Man creation, by blending genetics, because we all know the Serpent Men will do that. And or you could just say they're Yuan-ti and ride with it. You could explain it however you want. I mean, Amber would be a good one. I mean, yeah, now that you bring it up, I mean, Steven, there are so many basic and advanced D&D adventures that could just 100% be modified just slightly even and become excellent adventures for Hyperborea. Lots of them, even maybe Night Stark Terror, if you were to make the people in it into Chimerians, and instead of them fighting goblins, maybe they would have to be fighting orcs or something like that. But otherwise, yeah. So again, another reason Hyperborea rules is because with very little effort whatsoever, pretty much any adventure you might own can easily become a Hyperborea. Well, Barrier Peaks, that's a given, When you consider that the Crabmen are still launching ships into space, and Mi-Go occasionally use their freaking magic and potions and whatnot to leave Hyperborea to go to maybe Pluto, maybe not. I mean, with the Mi-Go, it's like, yeah, they might live on Pluto, but they also might live on Planet X, or they might, who knows? It's Mi-Go. They're aliens. They do weird shit. And with the right magic and potions, they can fly through space. And they can take you with them if you don't mind having your head put in a jar before they do it. So that's another thing about Hyperborea. Space travel, while the players probably have no real concept of it, is an absolute thing that does 100% happen. I mean, that's on the cover of the Player's Handbook for 3rd edition. Literally, the players have just encountered a starship, a Crabman starship that has apparently crashed. And that's what they're looking at. They're surrounded by giant spiders, but they're looking at this crashed Crabman starship with the Crabman skeletons on the inside of it. And I mean, who knows what they could find in there, right? The Crabmen are not, untechnologically advanced. They're very, So a group of players wandering on that kind of thing, they could find weapons or any other kind of equipment, and that could 100% be your into Barrier Peak. Maybe the ship was not a human ship from another time or something. Maybe it was a ship that belonged to some other, Lovecraftian style race. And it crashed way up in the mountains near Mount Vermithon. And now you're up there looking around and, fighting frogomoths and weird vegetable pygmies and possibly finding technological stuff. See, that was always an adventure that I never wanted to run for my Greyhawk campaign because I just never liked the idea of it in my Greyhawk campaign. But it's an adventure I absolutely would run in a Hyperborean campaign, because I never really felt like Barrier Peaks fit quite in necessarily with, well, definitely not the kind of Greyhawk I was running. But Hyperborea, it's just natural. It's just 100% natural, that, hey, at some point, one of these very advanced civilizations that exist in the universe and on the Hyperborean continent itself may have crashed a starship. And your players have somehow got word that it exists. Maybe they heard about it from a scout or something. And they'll have to travel way up the frozen mountains of Vermithon, the Spiral Mountains somewhere, deal with all of the kind of bullshit that's up there just to get into the ship and start the actual adventure, And it would even suck more because unless the group runs into, say, some Yakut tribesmen or something in that region, it's not like they can just go home to rest every now and then that something goes bad, It's like, because they're 100 miles away from civilization. So if I were going to do that, I would definitely allow them to encounter some Yakut, which is basically, Siberians, but not European Siberians, like the more Asiatic Siberians. And if you read your book, you would find out the Yakut have basically been driven into hiding by the Eskimo, who are trying to wipe them out, genocide them. But if you're looking for the starship, I think I would definitely have the players encounter a tribe of Yakut who are willing to trade and be friendly and stuff, so that the adventurers at least have somewhere they can flee to between adventures or if stuff goes really bad. Now, you can chalk that up to just me being a nice DM that's not trying to murder my group all the time. Only like sometimes. And plus, who knows? It could be interesting. Maybe one of the characters falls in love with a princess of the Yakut. Maybe they decide that they're going to put an end to these Eskimo trying to hunt down the Siberians, And if you want to know what the Yakut are like, well, I'm sure you've probably seen the Siberian female band singing and dancing around. That's pretty much what you're thinking about. That's pretty much what we're talking about here. So Genghis Khan called them forest Mongols, but that was Genghis Khan. So yeah, man. And yes, Stephen, I agree. The fact that you've mentioned these things has just sent my brain whirling around. And it's awesome because in the long run, what it means is that I will never run out of, I small, not vicious, my little Pomeranian. This conversation with you has guaranteed that I will never run out of adventure ideas for probably the next 10 years. You know what I mean? Because the adventures you named, I own, not to mention all of the adventures I own from Goodman Games. So I've got like a row like this deep of just modules, right? And not to mention the modules I own from Northwind. I will be able to run pretty much just about anything forever. Especially since, I mean, max level is like what, 14. So once they hit that level, then, it's just a matter of doing what you do and doing what you do, doing it and doing it and doing it well. Um, so, yeah, I'm getting ready to take off. But, Stephen, this has been an incredibly, I would say, beneficial conversation. And any, oh man, nerdy ogre, damn it. But anyone who shows up and they want to run Hyperborea, but they hear what you and I've been talking about, Steve, I mean, I think that would be, again, very beneficial, because they're going to be like, ah, I can use Barrier Peak. I can use the Lost City. I can use the Forbidden City. I can use. No, homie, nothing you said, but I just said I'm logging off right when you popped in, and I got to go. And I hate to because you just popped in, but hopefully we get to chat some other time. That's all. Nothing you said, homie. And honestly, it was mostly Steve and I just racking our brains about ways to convert D&D and AD&D adventures to Hyperborea. So Lost City was a big one, and Isle of Dread was another tremendous idea that would fit right into Hyperborea. You wouldn't hardly even have to change anything. So, except for the dragon, there are no dragons. I mean, unless you want there to be one, then there could be one. But, yep, I think I'm going to go grab something to eat. But peace and love, guys. And I'll catch you later.